Hello and welcome back to another Knights of Lorcana League match. Today we've got a match versus Aquenne and Whandamme. Got Blurple versus Blue-Green. We've got Juan on the play today. See what he starts off with. We got a Tipo in the Inkwell. And a Develop turn 1. Solid turn 1 play for your blue decks. Find some pieces of whatever you're missing. Looks like got a little peek at his cards there. Look like a Clarabelle and one other card, big Clarabelle. See what he decides to keep. Little sneak peek. One thing you gotta watch out for playing with the webcams, where your hand's sitting at. Passes it over to Aquenne. See what they've got. I think it's pretty typical for these blue decks to not necessarily have a turn 1 play. Really just looking for that sail or that tipo. Turn 2. Interesting ink. Gwyntainth. That's a hard one to say. Gwyntainth. That's a pretty spicy, unique card. And then we get a Rafiki turn 1 for Aquenne. So solid development there. Always good to get a body on the board early. And then Juan's got the classic turn 2 Sail. I think Sail's slightly better than Tipo, just because you get to maintain an even hand versus Tipo dumping one from your hand. But Tipo does develop a body, so there's always arguments for both. We got a Mim Elephant going in the Inkwell for a Ken, and then a Sail for them as well. Nice, and then playing a Basil with the ink from Sail. That's another benefit from the Sail as well, is you get to ink something upright versus Tipo has it come in exerted, so you can play another 1-drop if you've got it. That's a pretty solid lead for a Ken, being on the draw. Then we've got the Pivotal 4 ink. We'll see what Juan has. Expecting a Donald Duck or a Cinderella. We do get the Donald Duck. Not the ideal play. You definitely want to play the Cinderella. But, you know, we'll take it. It's better than not having the 4-drop. And then we'll see what Aquenne has in the 4-drop. Most likely it's an ideal for Genie. Could also do Iago, Madam M Elephant. Yep, so we do see the Iago come down. Really solid body. Does die to any action, being an illusion, but really solid just for maintaining board state. We got both players drawing for the Donald. Pretty interesting card. Reads, at the start of your turn, each player may draw a card. Often see Donald played in conjunction with the big Clarabelle, as it builds up your opponent's hand and lets you make bigger Clarabelle draws. We have Juan thinking about what the next move's going to be. Up to 5 ink. And we're going to see 4 for that Cinderella coming in. Maybe drew that with the Donald draw. A very nice filtering card. Cinderella's ability is at the end of your turn. If you played a princess character this turn, you may put a card from your hand into your inkwell face down to draw a card. And she does count herself when she comes out, so a lot of decks will just play her as the only princess. And just helps you accelerate your ink more quickly. And that will put Win at a 7 ink next turn, which opens him up to just playing a Clarabelle without shift, or maybe even a 7-drop Basil. We'll see what Aquenne has to respond with. I think something like a Elsa would be really strong to exert this Cinderella or this Donald. Yep, there is the Elsa coming down. Really nice pick. I think deciding whether or not to make the trade with Iago or Rafiki, I think you can make a case for either of them. Ah, okay, yeah. Going in with the Elsa Rush, that makes sense. With the +2 from Basil's support. And then goes ahead and quests out. So that's why they went ahead and challenged with the Elsa, able to get quests on all their characters as well. So I think that was very efficient. Very nice. This is going to be a pretty big turn, I think, for Juan, though. We'll see what kind of 7-cost card, if any, comes down. We do get a card count. Makes me think the Clarabelle might be making a visit. Looks like 4 cards in hand for Aquenne. Then little Clarabelle goes in the inkwell, and we do get the big Clarabelle coming down. And her ability, keep in step, at the end of your turn. If chosen opponent has more cards in hand than you may draw until you have the same number, which works very well with You're Welcome. Shuffle chosen character, item, or location into their player's deck. That player draws 2 cards. Normally a bit of a drawback for using this card, giving your opponent cards, but with Clarabelle, it directly gives you cards as well. So Aken's got 6 cards in hand. Juan's got 3, so it looks like he'll be able to draw 3, which is a solid Clarabelle draw. We'll see what Aken has to answer. We'll be moving up to 6 ink most likely this turn, so not quite enough to play the Hades, unfortunately. But maybe could see some damage moving shenanigans with Bell. Looks like they've got a sudden scare in the list as well. Put chosen opposing character into their player's inkwell face down. Then that player puts the top card of their deck into their inkwell face down. So normally a pretty big drawback, double ramping your opponent, but playing against another blue deck, you know they're going to get there anyway in terms of ink, so could be useful for some spot removal. Looks like Rafiki's going to trade into the Donald Duck with the Challenger 3 plus the support from Basil, enough to take down the 5 willpower of Donald. I think that's a great trade up for Rafiki. He'll always take a 1 cost for a 4 cost. And we don't want to keep filling our hand and giving our opponent free draws with the Donald and the Clarabelle together. Could be a good time for Aken to develop a genie, establish that. Maybe get a Woodchuck guidebook out. Interesting, we do get another Elsa. Oh, very nice play. Very nice play. So, Into the Unknown puts chosen exerted character into their player's inkwell face down and exerted. Clarabelle was upright, but playing the Elsa, second Elsa, exerted the Clarabelle, which allowed Aken to clean up that Clarabelle very nicely. So overall, very, very nice board control from Aken. But we do have a handful of cards from Juan, so we'll see what kind of answers he's got. Possibly Little Philip into Big Philip play. Also have John Silver, 7-cost Basil available. Do get another small Clarabelle into the Inkwell. At that point where we don't really have to worry about shifting so much. We do get a second Cinderella down and a Donald as well. So Juan's sitting on a lot of ink right now. I think 10 ink if we're correct. Quite a lot of options there. Can actually just play Big Philip on his own now. Do have the option with our 2 5-cost Elsas to sing a second star to the right. Might be good to just find some more answers. Also, we'll be able to ink up to 7 to play the Hades this turn if needed. To get a Bell in the Inkwell. Oh, very nice. So for 6 ink, we're shifting Big Elsa. When you play this character, exert up to 2 chosen characters. They can't ready at the start of their next turn. And then because that Elsa shifted, she will be available to quest or challenge. Would have to give. Okay. So the Elsa got boosted from the Basil and goes ahead and challenges into the Cinderella. And then quest for 3 with Big Elsa there. I think that's a solid play. Can't take out the Donald cleanly, so decides to just get that lore. Lore score is starting to creep away from Juan, so he is going to have to start to control this board, especially this Big Elsa, if he wants to come back from this. And then we do see the Donald Duck does stay exerted because of Big Elsa. It's frozen for just 1 turn. We do get a You're Welcome on Big Elsa. And what's the ink situation looking like? So Juan is sitting at 6 ink right now, ready to use after playing that You're Welcome, looks like. Could ink 1 more and play a Bend to My Will. Try and remove some of those options from Aquenne's hand. I think that would be a very strong play right now. Yeah, Aquenne at 6 cards in hand now, so that could be a very potent play. We do get a develop, so trying to look for some answers here. Checking the hand, trying to see what card will be best to keep. But I think so far Ken has taken a very solid control of this match, making some very smart plays with the exerting that with the Elsas, taking some reasonable trades. So it looks like we do get Little Philip and also 1-cost Clarabelle out as well. So we do have the threat of Malicious, Mean, and Scary into a Big Philip combo. So we'll have to be wary of that. Might not be the best to play out the big hand. But if Aquenne does not play out a few things, then could be looking at a very, very quick race with Juan sitting at 5 potential lore next turn if he decides to quest. And that Elsa with 4 damage is only going to be able to take 1 more good trade, unless we get something like a Bell. Ken taking some time here, just deciding what the best course of action is going to be. I think they realize that if the right move is not chosen, this game could come away from them very quickly. I think they had a very, very solid start, so you definitely want to try and maintain that momentum. Right now, with this current board state, they do not have what they need to continue this aggression. Going to need some answers to come down. So we do see that Bell come out. And looks like they're going to move the 3 damage from the Elsa to the Donald. And then going to go ahead and quest with the Basil for some support and run the Elsa into the Basil. Or sorry, run the Elsa into the Donald. And then we get a Woodchuck's Guidebook out. I think that's a very solid play. Won't go down to the Philip combo, obviously, being an item. So that will help with some recovery. Also can help with recovering from a Bend to My Will, if that ends up happening. So overall, very nice like safety play. And at this point, I think Juan, even if he does have the Philip combo in hand, it might not feel worth to go for it on just 3 characters. But it could be. Really, it has to be a difficult decision. Do you get a John Silver in the Inkwell? And looks like maybe 12 ink available now, so Inkwell is sitting very large for Juan. So we do see the Shift Clarabelle come out. Taking some time to think about this next move. Does have the ability to sing a malicious, mean, and scary. Oh, we get an Under the Sea. How interesting. So we're gonna have Elsa and Basil going under the deck. I think that's a pretty interesting play. Not bad by any means because it does get the Under the Sea out of the hand. There's not a lot of cards in Aken's deck that are susceptible to the Under the Sea. So getting rid of 2 things, I think, is pretty solid. Gets just a bit more board control. The Bell can challenge into the 3-cost Philip now, but Juan has enough ink. Yeah, so the Bell does challenge into the Philip. Juan does have enough ink that he could just sing the malicious, mean, and scary with the Clarabelle. But we do get the Hades down on the Clarabelle. So that's 2 more ink going into Juan's Inkwell because of the shift. So 13 ink available for him. And then Inks and Iago for the 1 ink to pop the guidebook and draw 2. Yeah, so I think Juan might be kicking himself a little bit for that under the sea play. I think it was something that had to happen. He definitely had to answer this board somehow, but Aquenne was able to clean it up very, very cleanly. And at this point, Juan's on a 3-turn clock. Ken will be able to quest for 4 next turn, and maybe even a 2-turn clock if they're able to get another 2-quester out, like the Gwyn. Could even just like slam down an Elsa or a Genie I know is sneaking around in there. So this is a very, very tight spot for Juan right now. So we do get the Malicious, Mean, and Scary, a hard cast, which will banish the Bell. And then he will have enough ink to just play the Phillip as well. I think that might be where this is going. Could also just do something like playing a Basil to bounce the Hades back to hand, but then there is the threat of just getting the Hades enter the board trigger again, so maybe not ideal. Could also do a John Silver to prevent the Hades from questing. But at this point, it just feels kind of like an uphill battle. Juan really not able to get anything on the board yet, even being on the play, which is very tough. We do see the Donald come out again. So it kind of shows me that he might not have the answers that he needs in hand. We do see that Basil, though, which is going to bounce the Hades back. But very, very tough decision there because, yeah, Hades will just be able to come back down. And I would throw it on this Basil. Really, really tough spot for Juan to be in right now. I think Ken has full control of this game 1. And is just looking for a way to finish it off. Yep, so Hades comes down, hits the Basil. And then we do get a Sail. So we'll be able to ink again this turn. Has a very full hand, so could get rid of some 1-drops like little Basil or Rafiki. Just 1 card in hand right now for Juan, unfortunately. Very, very tough spot to be in. Okay, and then yeah, does go ahead and ink the Gwyn for another draw, or sorry, ink for the Sail. So another ink for turn, putting them up to 10. $15 ink on the side of Juan and 2 cards from the Donald, but not sure if the answers are there. Do get a 1 jump. Tough spot. Dang, and then Juan just has to pass there, unfortunately. Really, really hard spot to be in. Maybe just no answers in hand. Could be stuck maybe with an Under the Sea. Or maybe something like a Mother Knows Best. Doesn't want to just throw that Hades back again. So Ken has a full hand of potential threats here. We'll see what comes down. I think maybe something like Big Elsa could be very strong. A Gweeth Gwyn. I don't know how to say this dragon's name. That's a hard one. or those elusive genies as well. We haven't seen any genies come down. 2 of those would pretty much seal the deal, I think. Do have 8 exerted for Big Elsa. So 2 more ink available for Aquenne to use, I think, if the ink tracker is correct. Very nice. And then a hard cast into the unknown on the Donald, going in the Inkwell, and then the Hades quests. And now Juan has to be feeling the pressure. I mean, we could see a hard cast, Malicious, Mean, and Scary into Big Philip. That's probably the only thing that's really going to save him. Do get a Basil, which will stop the Elsa from questing as it's going to go back to hand, but Elsa might just come down again and exert the Basil and freeze it up, so it won't be able to do its on-quest effect. Juan is doing an excellent job of stalling Aquenne from this win. Oh, very interesting. There's the sudden scare on the Basil. So Basil's gonna go in the ink, and then the top card of Juan's deck is gonna go into the ink as well. So I think with the opponent at 17 ink doesn't really care about putting him up to 19 and just removes one more thing from the board. So a very nice spot to use that, I think. Okay, then we do get the Gwyn Exerti Dragon. This is a 4/3 evasive that quests for 2. Whenever this character quests, each opponent chooses and exerts one of the ready characters. So anything that Juan puts down will get exerted if it's just a single character. Looks like Juan's looking, asking what this card does. I've never seen this card really. Looks like it's new to set 10, but yeah, not a very often seen card right now. So a little bit of spicy tech. Oh my gosh. Looks like Wan had a handful of malicious, mean, and scaries. Absolutely brutal. Yeah, we had a feeling that he was bricked on something there, and that makes a lot of sense. That's very tough. Very tough. So yeah, he played all 3 malicious, mean, and scaries to banish this Gweeth and did 3 damage to the Hades. But yeah, that's absolutely nutty. Very unfortunate hand situation there. And then now we finally have a Ken threatening game on board. We do get a You're Welcome coming down on the Hades, so no longer threatening game. Ken does get to draw 2 off of that, though. Will most likely just play another one of their 2 questers after this shuffle and draw 2, plus they're drawing for turn as well. So that's most likely going to be a scooper and go next. This has been a wild game 1. Juan really did a great job of stalling out as much as he could, really just probably digging for Big Philip, just pretty much his only out here. But even the Big Philip is pretty vulnerable to things like the Hades or getting exerted and getting hit by Into the Unknown. We do finally see a genie come down on the side of the Ken. So we get visions come down. So nice little dig there. But big game on board threat here. If there was any universe where, oh yeah, that's a great Under the Sea. I was gonna say that if there was any universe where Malicious, Mean, and Scary and Big Phillip could come out, maybe he could stall for one more turn. But we do see the Under the Sea hit everything except for the Iago. So something, one more turn. All right, there's just a top deck. You're welcome, and that's gonna be game one for Aquenne. That was a very hard fought battle from Juan. You know, credit to him, he didn't give up until the last lore was quested. Um, very difficult hand situation, very difficult board situation. Aquenne did an amazing job with taking out the correct targets. Really made sure that Clarabelle's did not stay established. Just overall super clean play, and it shows from the lore totals. So yeah, we're gonna shuffle up and go to game number 2. All right, we are shuffled up, decks are cut, and we are moving on to game 2. We'll see if Juan will be able to answer the threats that Aken is able to present. Do get a turn 1 Clarabelle. Very nice to develop a body. That was one thing that Juan was missing game 1. There were no bodies developed until turn 3. And then we do see Aken just inking a Tipo for turn and passing, so no Basil, no Rafiki in hand, but that's all right. Sometimes it's with these blue decks, you'll just see the ink pass turn 1, which is totally okay. Do see turn 2 for one jump ahead, so nice little insurance tech card there, making sure that you hit your ramp. Also some niche uses like being able to be sung by a Tipo for double ramping if you don't find your Cinderella. Do get the sail come down from Aken. And then we do see the Basil come out. So Clarabelle no longer free to quest. I would definitely take out this Clarabelle if it was exerted with the Basil, just to remove the threat of shift. So definitely something one has to consider, and most likely keep the Clarabelle upright. Do get that nice ideal turn 3 with the Cinderella, ramping up to 5 at the end of the turn, and then we'll be able to go to 6 next turn, which opens up something like a John Silver. Also, just a shift Clarabelle could work as well. But we are at 4 ink for Aken, so we can see something like Genie or Iago. Yep, and we do see the Genie come down. One of my personal favorite cards, very strong. 2/4 evasive. When you play this character, draw a card. Quest for 2. Amethyst staple at this point in the game, has been around since Azurite Sea and has been terrorizing non-purple players just as long. Do you see 6 cost Max Goof going in the Inkwell? So opting to not play that with the sinks and 6, and instead going for a Clarabelle shift. And then we do get the very nice play of a Cinderella singing a You're Welcome. So Genie not able to get any value before he is taken out beyond the 1 card drawn. And the Clarabelle draw will be even better now. It looks like Aken maybe has 5 cards in hand, so could go up to 7 here, if the die is correct. Yeah. So Akken confirms they have 7 cards in hand, so this is going to be a pretty potent Clarabelle draw. Juan only has 1 card in hand, so he will be drawing 6. Could be drawing into the Big Philip combo very easily here. Also something like a John Silver or a Basil to lock down any of Akken's questers. Moving up to 5 ink for Akken, so we could see our Elsas, although might not be extremely useful, could just take out the Cinderella with an Elsa and Basil questing with support. I think that's about the only really impactful 5-drop. Other than that, maybe we could see another Genie come down. Do get the Elsa. Yep, and then Elsa will go ahead and challenge out Cinderella. Remove a singer, remove a body. Very solid choice. Pretty much the only like decent five cost choice there. Next turn we could possibly see a Belle, shifting that damage from the Elsa to the Clarabelle, and then having a supported Elsa finish off the Clarabelle. So that's a line that Juan's gonna have to look out for. Possibly might not want to exert the Clarabelle just to avoid that. But not going to have to worry about that too much because we have Clarabelle singing You're Welcome onto the Elsa. So removing a threat and giving Akken 2 more cards, but also giving Juan himself 2 more cards through the Clarabelle effect. So we're definitely seeing blue-green shine right here. This is where you want to be, having an uncontested Clarabelle on board, being able to sing the Your Welcomes, drawing you more cards while removing your opponent's threats. And this is a hard spot to be in, I think, for Akken, because they do have a full hand of cards, but don't have the ink to play them. And Blurple is a pretty top-heavy deck, so unless you can play out a few of your 1 costs in conjunction with your 4 cost or 5 cost characters, you're really not able to do much with this. Still not enough ink for a Hades, not enough ink for a big Elsa, so really not able to do a whole lot with all these cards in hand. And then we do get, it looked like a hard cast Mother Knows Best onto the Basil, back to the hand, adding 1 more draw for the Clarabelle. And then goes ahead and plays a Develop, dig just a little bit further. And I think I missed a sale as well while I was jabbering there, because looks like we have 2 inks, and then this might be the second sale for turn there. One, two, three, four, five, 6. So it looks like Juan had 3 cards in hand, Akken with 9. So Juan getting a huge 6 draw there. Sitting at an incredible amount of ink right now as well on one side. And then we do have the guidebook going in the inkwell, which I think makes sense. Doesn't need any more cards than 9 here at this point, so it's just kind of clogging up. Very nice play though with the hard cast into the unknown, finally getting rid of that Clarabelle threat. But to be fair, I think Clarabelle really did her job already. I think she drew what, more than 10 cards? I think it was like 5 and then 6. So I think Juan is more than happy with letting that Clarabelle go into the inkwell, especially with the double ink from the shift. And then we do just see a Tipo and a Basil come down on the side of Akken, so maybe not anything super useful in hand yet, or maybe clogged up a little bit with a couple copies of Hades, which would be a little unfortunate because just not quite there with the ink. Yeah, we have 12 ink on the side of Juan right now, so some huge plays coming down. We get the double John Silver. Absolutely brutal. When you play this character and whenever he quests, chosen opposing character gains Reckless during their next turn, so they can't quest and must challenge if able. Characters will still be available to sing songs if they're Reckless, but I don't think the Basil or the Tipo will be able to sing anything in this deck. Only thing that would be possible would be a second Star to the Right if there was other characters on the board to help them sing it. So this double John Silver play could be super detrimental to whatever Aquenne wants to do. Will force some challenges if they're not careful. So we do get the Gwent coming down. And then unfortunately just has to pass there. No questing available with the Basil or the Tipo. And then we will see that the Gwent will be locked out of its ability, most likely. It is a whenever this character quests ability. So, won't be able to exert anything on the opponent's side, unfortunately, if one goes ahead and chooses the Gwent for Reckless. Juan counting up the ink right now, really thinking about what the next play is going to be. I think he's in an excellent spot right now, a much better spot versus last game. Lots of cards in hand, lots of options, ton of ink to play it as well. So it looks like we have an Under the Sea come down. So we're going to be sending the Tipo and the Basil under the deck. I think it's a nice play here. Play it while there are targets that can go down. Will prevent the Basil from providing support. And then we do get a Cindy come down as well, so a bit more filtering, a bit more ink. And we get a Quester, and this is when I think Juan's going to start putting on the gas, and we'll attempt to close out the game here. All right, there's the Cindy ink and draw. And we'll see what kind of answer Ken has here. We'll be up to that important 8 ink, so could play an Elsa to freeze out these John Silvers. Could play a Hades to remove one. We'll have to see what sort of answers come about here. Sail inked for turn. And then we do get the Hades come down. One of the silvers goes in the inkwell. A bit of a mistake there. Ken did quest with the Gwyn, but I do believe it was Reckless from the John Silver. So we'll see if that ends up mattering towards the end of the match. Usually small things like that don't, but if there is a situation where it's a very tight match and somebody's only winning or losing by a couple lore, then those are the small things that do add up. Because at this point, the Gwyn would have had to challenge into the silver, which would have banished it. But yeah, we do just get a Sung, Malicious, Mean, and Scary, and a Philip, so Gwent dead regardless. Only thing that's missing here is Ken should be down 2 lore, and then also Silver should have 4 damage on him. But overall, I think this isn't going to change the state of the match too much with where it's at this point. Let's see, what are we at now? Juan's sitting at 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8. 8 lore, so 2-turn clock right now. Do get the Elsa come down. I would exert the Philip and the Silver here. But we do get an exert on the Clarabelle and a freeze. I would freeze the Silver just to stop its on-quest effect for 1 turn. Does let you do a little quest with Elsa. Probably won't survive very long, but can get a little lore on the board there. Develop coming down from Juan. Sorry, that is a vision. It's not a develop. Well, that's a develop. Looks like we might have another character coming down, making a little space. Hard to keep track of all this ink, I'm sure. We do get the second Clarabelle come down. The effects don't stack up or anything, but just a solid body that quests for 2. So it can still put some lore pressure. And then we get another Cinderella, so there's going to be a double Cinderella trigger at the end of the turn here. So Juan will be able to ink draw, then ink draw. And then the Elsa does have Reckless now. And then, so very smart ordering of the triggers here. We'll get to draw from Clarabelle first, and then is going to do the ink draws with the Cinderellas. It looks like it's just going to be 1 ink draw. Possibly likes everything that's in hand. All right, and then we do have a scoop, a huge board down, so not surprising. One thing that Blurple does struggle with is a wide board, especially a wide board full of very, very beefy characters like that. So very, very solid game from Juan there. Definitely what he wanted to happen game 1. Just found everything he needed, was able to control Aquenne, and was really able to just put the lore pressure on after about turn 7 or 8. So yep, we're going to shuffle up and go to a game 3. And here we are at game 3. We're going to have Aquenne on the play this time. First time they've been on the play this match. So we'll see if that is enough of an advantage to take down Juan's control. We do get a Rafiki, turn 1. I believe that was a Gwynth, the fun dragon in the inkwell. Gwynfaint. I think that's how we say it. Gwynfaint. Incredibly difficult to pronounce. You know what's not difficult to pronounce, though? Develop your brain. We're going to get a nice turn 1 play here from Juan. Dig just a little bit. Find something he needs. Get rid of something he doesn't. Do get a Dolores in the Inkwell, which is a card we haven't seen in action yet. And then we get a Tipo for turn 2, so again, able to find that ramp. And Rafiki free to quest right now with no bodies on the board. Donald in the Inkwell. And we do get our ramp on the other side as well. Going to see a Sail the Azurite Sea. And a big basil going in the inkwell. And with that one remaining ink, going to see another develop come down. I think that's a very, very efficient use of ink. No bodies developed yet on the side of Juan. That was an issue game one. Wasn't able to establish anything early, so we'll see if that does end up hurting him in the long run here in game three. I think game two went very well because he was able to establish an early Clarabelle. We do see the quests come down. And looks like Aquenne missed a 4-drop, unfortunately. Is able to quest freely for 2 here, which is nice, but very, very difficult situation to be in when you don't have your 4-drop. One of the difficult parts about piloting a blue deck is you really want to hit your 4-drop like the Cinderella we see on the side of Wen. Playing that 4-drop on turn 3 is a pretty crucial part to pushing your advantage with having the extra ink. We'll be able to go up to 5 ink on the side of Aquenne, so possible Elsa threat. Cinderella would be able to be taken out by the Rafiki, or it could be a quest Basil supporting the Elsa to take down the Cinderella as well. Do see a quest coming out from Tipo, possible for a Madame Mim bounce. Do know that card is floating around in this deck as well. We do get the Elsa come down though for 5. And then we have Rafiki trade into the Cinderella. Guess it'd be hard to get a Basil support on your Cinderella or on your Elsa if you don't have a Basil. So, but clean trade for Rafiki will always take a 1 for a 4. That's why he's there. But now we do get Philip down, and with 6 ink available for Juan, next turn he will be threatening the infamous Malicious, Mean, and Scary Big Philip combo. So Aquenne will definitely have to play a bit more reserved and hopefully not overextend and get hit by the combo. Do we get a Mother Knows Best hit onto the Elsa? So that will be returning to hand, and I think this is a safe play here because the Little Philip has Ward, so cannot be chosen by the Elsa for the effect. Would expect possibly a Clarabelle to come down next turn for 1, but at this point, I think they're at a pretty even hand count, so Clarabelle won't be able to do too much. Definitely something you want to be shifting on turn 5 and singing your welcome like we saw in game 2. So we'll see if that lack of momentum ends up hurting Juan. Interesting, we just get a quest on the Tipo, inking that Elsa that went to hand, and we're passing. So we'll be threatening a Hades next turn on the side of Aquenne. So if the Clarabelle does come down, which it does, she might not get to live very long. Yeah, it looks like Juan just goes ahead and passes here and is going to draw 1. I think was potentially thinking about doing something with the Philip, but doesn't want to expose it to a rush Elsa, which I understand. Yep, so we do see that Hades come down on the Clarabelle. I think that was pretty expected with where the ink was at. Uh, my philosophy is if the Blurple player is at 7, just assume the Hades is gonna come down. Just think they have it because that's often the case. We do see a Visions come down on the side of Juan, so possible that he's digging for a piece of his combo for the Malicious Mean and Scary Big Philip. Does have enough ink to shift the Philip still if he wants to sing with Little Philip and then shift on with the big one. I think at this point, if Juan can't answer this Hades, I think Aken will be able to build up a little bit more of a board and start questing a little harder, which could prove to be difficult to deal with. Looks like maybe 4 coming down for a Donald. Yep, we do get the Donald. So definitely tells me that Juan does not have the answers that he needs in hand currently if he's willing to play that Donald. You don't want to be giving the Blurple player extra cards, especially when they're starting to move up in ink like this. But I think if he does not have what he needs, it is worth it for him just to dig a little bit further into his deck. And then we do get a pass here. And this Tipo is a trooper. He's been surviving for a while. Okay. And then guidebook is going to come down and then immediately get popped for a total of 3 ink. Drawing 2. Does have 4 more ink available, 5 now. So could see a Belle, Elsa, Gwynthaint, Genie as well would be very solid. Do get the Elsa come down again. Could do Elsa and Hades. I think that's the only option here. Unless we've got something like a Hypnotic Strength, but I don't think that's in the list. We do also have the threat of a second star to the right being able to be sung by a Ken next turn, which could be very potent. Yeah, Hades and Elsa do go ahead and take out the Donald. Tipo keeps on trucking, getting one more lore. I think this Tipo's quested like 3 or 4 times now, so definitely getting the worth out of his body. If a Ken had played a Sail turn 2, would be down 3 or 4 lore right now. So we do get the just raw shift on the Philip, so unable to find the Malicious Mean and Scary, unfortunately. Does play a develop afterwards. Maybe it would have been prudent to develop first, try and find the Malicious Mean and Scary, but the Elsa and the Hades already had damage on them. So only thing Malicious Mean and Scary would have taken out would be the Tipo as well, so not super threatening. And then the Big Philip does get to go ahead and start questing for 3. As a 6/6 evasive, he's definitely difficult to answer. I think really the only things that cleanly take out this Philip on the side of a Ken is either an Iago plus Basil for that 6 strength, or something simple like an Into the Unknown or Hades to put it in the Inkwell. So a few options. I think Into the Unknown and Hades, obviously a lot easier to manage. Also, there was that sudden scare as well, which could be a really clean answer for the Philip. Are we going to see the big 7 for Hades? Ah, no, we get the just hard cast into the unknown on the Philip. Does get 2 ink in the inkwell for 1, but very difficult because he definitely needed that Philip to stick around and do a bit more questing. And then we get another guidebook on the side of Aquenne and pops immediately for 2 more draws. we get 2 for another guidebook, but it doesn't have the ink to pop this one, so we'll have to wait next turn for that. And then Tipo keeps on going. Visions coming down from 1. Definitely doesn't have what he needs in hand, it looks like. Really wants to find probably a John Silver or a Basil. Maybe even another Philip. But this is starting to look very reminiscent of game 1 where all of Juan's answers are just, or all of Juan's threats are getting answered very cleanly, very easily in 1 turn by a Ken. We get another Visions come down, so either has what he needs and is just looking for a little more, or still hasn't been able to pick up something that he needs. Very, very tough spot to be in, I think, right now, even though the lore totals are not very far away from each other, and again, does not have much of a board developed. I think the threat of this guidebook being popped and even more cards going in hand for them really makes it scary for Juan here if he's not able to put something big down on the board. We do get the John Silver come out, though, thankfully. It does give that Tipo Reckless, so it cannot keep questing this turn. Do pop the guidebook over on the side of a Ken. Get a couple more answers. Would be really unfortunate for Juan to see the Hades here again. I think it's very possible. I think we've seen just 2 so far, if I remember correctly. So I think 2 more floating around. Could also see something like Big Elsa freeze out the silver. You do get a sail come out though, so digging a little more. Possibly inking a little more if they want. Then we get the Rafiki Basil come down. So interesting set of cards here versus the John Silver. John Silver does have 5 willpower. So either Silver locks the Basil out of questing, and Ken has to commit both characters to taking out the John Silver. Otherwise, ooh. We do get a hard cast under the sea come down, though. So that's going to completely clean up everything that Ken's got on board currently. So we're seeing a bit of a comeback here from Juan. Has been able to answer the board so far if it can. We get another Into the Unknown onto the silver. And then Gwynthate comes out. Will be threatening to exert whatever comes down next turn from 1. Those look like, what, 6 ink being exerted? Possible for another John Silver. Yep. Do get another John Silver come down, so Gwynth will be locked out of questing. Still could see a play similar to we saw earlier where we get the Elsa come exert the silver. But no, much more clean. We just get a Hades straight onto the silver and a pass over. So Juan building up a very nice inkwell, but unfortunately seems like doesn't have the cards that he needs right now. Looking through the discard, seeing what's there, what might be available left in the deck. Lore totals are very close right now, but I think Ken might have just a little bit more in the hand than Juan. Do you get the Philip just come down? And then we get a You're Welcome played on the dragon. So You're Welcome hits. Ken will get to draw 2. And then the Philip will be threatening with the big questing. Well, will have to be answered by something like a big Elsa to freeze it out. Sudden Scare would also work very nicely, or maybe another Into the Unknown. I don't know if we're going to see another Hades this game. I think this is the 3rd Hades that has come out, if I remember correctly. We get 2 draws for Your Welcome, 1 draw for turn, so that's 3 cards going to the hand of a Ken. So definitely something could be there to answer this Philip. Yes, we do see that sudden scare come down on the Philip, which has to hurt. Very brutal. This might be the beginning of the end for Juan here. I feel like he's played his bombs, and at this point, he's going to be close to top decking. I think he's only got 1 or 2 cards in hand. And we see a Ken just slowly building up a stronger hand with these Amethyst cards, like the Junior Woodchuck guidebook. Like this, that might be the 4th guidebook popped this game. One card in hand for Juan, unfortunately. We'll be up to 2 here. We'll see what he's got available to play. And we get the double Philip come down. So a little bit of threat of shifting Big Philip onto that, but no cards in hand to threaten that, unfortunately. We'll have to top deck it if he wants it. This is 4 lore, but either one of these gets cleaned up very easily by this Hades. Only saving grace with these Philips is they can't be chosen for any effects like the Elsa, big or small. But we just get the Genie come down, possibly see another Genie or another 2-quester. And I think at this point, this is when you put on the gas and you start questing. Sail in the Inkwell. Looks like we play a sail. Get a draw. Yeah, so this is a very tight match right now. Definitely think it's in favor of a Ken right now just because of the board state and the hand situations. You do get the Iago come down, so that's going to help control the board if any other threats come out. Genie and Iago together can deal with the Big Philip. And we don't see the card in Juan's hand immediately come down, which might mean it's not something that he can play, or it's something that's not going to really help him out right now. Could possibly be another Under the Sea, which would only hit the genie. Could just be something like a Tipo or Sail. Probably would play the Sail here, though, just to draw. We do see Juan go ahead and quest for 4 here and not play the card that was in hand. Just trying to put a little bit of pressure on, which I respect. I think at this point, just drawing and passing is definitely not the play. I think making Aquenne commit at least one of the characters into the Phillip, maybe possibly 2, will help slow down the game a little bit. We do get that second genie come down, though, which is a bit brutal. Could make an Under the Sea in hand a little bit more potent, getting rid of both of them. But at this point, we're going to see Aquenne quest up to 17, possibly, if there's no challenges. Yeah, so Genie's going to quest. And we get a second star sung from the Hades and the Iago. Not something that I was expecting to come at this point, but could just help Aquenne slam game on board here. We do already see game on board represented, actually, with the 4 lore from the Genies and then 2 more from Hades. And we get a second Iago come down, and I think at this point, the only thing that can save Juan would be a Phillip combo, but I don't think he'll have the ability to draw it. He doesn't have anything in his deck that's going to let him get both the Big Phillip and the Malicious, Mean, and Scary, unless he had one or the other in hand when he passed turn last turn. I think that's the only out for him at this point. And even if that does happen, we've got 5 cards behind on the side of Aquenne. So a really tight spot to be in. We'll see if there's any answers. Yeah, so Hades gets taken down, but even there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we get a Malicious, Mean, and Scary come down. And the Max Goof, so, but that's still 6. All right, and that's the game. That was the last thing that Juan had available to play. Really nice game from both players. I really respect Juan's tenacity to take it all the way to the end on both of those games, even though he wasn't exactly finding what he needed. Definitely needed the Clarabelles. Definitely needed just a few more answers or a few more things to help him go wide. But some really, really solid play from Aquenne there. Really made Blurple seem super dominant. The control was incredible. Makes me want to break out the Blurple list. That was very nice. Very well done. So yeah, thanks for watching, and we will catch you guys for the next one.